Welcome back to Modeling Time with me, Brian Banna. In this episode, we're going to finish up the trucks and they'll be ready for paint. So let me get the camera set up over here and I'll go over what's left and what I need to do to them. They're pretty much done. I just have one item to do and I'll show you that here in just a second. Okay, so these are the trucks. They're pretty much done. All I have left to do is put the sanding nozzles on them. So this is the front truck. As you can see, I have the speed recorder on the front left axle. It's a Utah Pacific. It worked out well and it fit really nicely. So there wasn't much to show you with gluing on the journal boxes. My hands would have been in the way anyway, and I have to, rotate this thing and make sure that everything's lined up properly. The key to putting them on is, because I have to use CA to glue Delrin to Delrin, I have to make sure that when I put them on that they're square with the journal or with the side frame. And I couldn't do that on camera. I had to get them up close to my face and make sure that the lines all lined up and stuff like that. So I couldn't show you that. But they are glued on. Is basically putting some glue on the face of the side frame and then lining up the journal box where it needs to be and making sure that it's lined up, parallel with the bottom of the frame. So that takes care of that. So we've got a square box, slope box, square box on the opposite sides. So if this was the front of the locomotive here, left side, front axle, we've got the speed recorder over here, so we've got a square box, slope box, square box, slope box, slope, square, slope, square. So that's how it's all set up. So I've got the airlines on. They're glued to the top of the frame. And one of the details that I don't see a lot of people doing, I don't think many people pay attention to it, is I put the NBWs on the bottom where the journal keepers are. That's what I call them, journal keepers. It's the plate that's on the bottom, so that when they have to take the traction motor set out with the wheels and all that and the journals, they take that plate off, so they unbolt those. They take those bolts out, and then they drop out, and then they can take the traction motor out. But I like adding those details. You don't really see them, but it adds a little bit of fun to it. So the next thing I have to do is put in these, or build these sanding nozzles. This is 25 thousandths wire, and the way that I do that, I'll show you in just a minute. We'll set up at the lathe in just a minute. But to get them located, so I want them all to be at 60 degrees so that they look proper. So to do that is I took my 30, 60, 90 triangle, set it up against this box back here, and then just lightly scribed a 60-degree line on there. Then I poke a little pinprick in the frame where I want it. I start the drill bit straight, and then every turn I angle it so until it's at the angle of the scribe line, and then I just drill it all the way down through, making sure it's straight. And then after I build my sanding nozzles, I can stick them through there and glue them in place. So I've showed how I've built these sanding nozzles before, but I figure for this project, why not show at least one being center drilled for 12 thousandths wire, so I can solder that wire into it. So let me get the camera set up at the lathe, and we'll get one of them done. All right, so I've got a 1/64th bit milling bit in here, and I've got the piece of wire sitting right in there. Now it doesn't have to go too deep. I usually run it in about as deep as the length of this cut. This material is a little gummy, so I have to be really careful that I don't bite too deep. I have to go in real slow, spinning it really, turning this up really fast, like that, and then just a slow gradual feed so I don't take too much of a cut and it'll just snap that that bit off. So I'd appreciate it if you guys wouldn't break my bits for me. So anyway, let's get this started. So first thing I'm going to do is I'll put a little bit of oil on there. Oil helps it to not get caught up in the gumminess of this phosphor bronze. Go a little bit at a time. Back it out, clean it off, put a little bit more oil on there. And that takes care of one of them. So now I got to do that 7 more times. It's a little time consuming, but the results in the end are not too bad. So that over there. So I'll take this out and I'll just do 7 more of them just like that. So now we're going to solder the pin into these nozzles so that I can put the hose on them later on. So I'm just going to stick that into the vise. Take the wire. I like to rough up the end a little bit. So I'll square up the end, the diamond file, and just rough it up a little bit. Stick it into the flux. Got my solder there. Clean the tip off. Put a little dab of solder on there. And just solder it in place. And that's it. And then I'll just cut it off. Got some nippers here for my side cutters. And I'll cut it off long so that I can size it later, but just basically, and that's it. So I'll go ahead and get the other 7 done. And after I'm done here, then I'll come back and I'll clean up any flux that has hardened on it. And I'll take the tweezers and I'll straighten this, because these don't solder in straight unless you're really, really good at holding them straight. So I'll just bend the wire to be straight with the tube, and that takes care of one of the nozzles. I use Minitronics ultra flexible wire, and I strip the wire out of the insulator, and then I slip that insulator over this pin. But you'll see that when we get to the assembly part. So again, I'll get these 7 done and we'll move on. So the trucks are now done, and ready for grit blasting and painting. Now you saw how I did the drilling out the end of the sanding nozzle and then soldering in the 12 thousandths pin and stuff. And then what I did is I cut, let me zoom in a little bit here. Okay. And then I cut the nozzle portion to 140 thousandths in length and the pin to 120 thousandths in length, and then I glued them in with the nozzle just barely sticking out the bottom. The detail that you're seeing is the nozzle above the frame. You really don't see it below it, so I just wanted it to stick out just a little bit. So now, after I get this all painted and stuff, I can slip on. Actually, what I should probably do is go ahead and put the sanding hose wire pieces on there now, so when I paint it all, it'll get painted as well. So I'll do that and show you that real quick before I grit blast it. And I've got the speed recorder cable on, which is a piece of Loc sound wire. It shows black. And basically, I'll show you how I do this. Only cut a piece for as long as you think you will need it. So I've cut a piece approximately there. Okay, then what you want to do is you want to strip off the end of the insulation a bit. So I just carefully clamp, not going all the way through, pull the wire. This insulation comes off real easy, and then pull that. Then what I do is I take a pair of duckbill pliers or flat nose pliers, and I grab that wire, squeeze it really tight, and I just start pulling, trying to pull just at this point. Don't pull down here because you'll stretch the insulation and you'll break it. So just pull just at that point, pull it a little bit, and then don't use too much pressure and just straighten out your insulation because it'll bunch up down at the end. Then grab your wire again and just pull at that point. And you pulled all the wire out. So now there's no wire sticking out of there. So now you have your speed recorder cable. Now, to put it on there, you'll notice there's a little bit of a curvature in here. What I do is I cut the end off a little bit so I have a nice clean end. And then you'll notice there's a little bit of a curvature here. So what you want to do is you want to take that and put that curvature in the same line that your speed recorder cable is going to curve up. So that curvature is like that, so it would go just like that. So let me get the ultra flexible wire out, and I'm going to do the same thing and strip the wire out of it just like that, and I can get it onto these pins. What's nice is I didn't have to glue this wire on or this insulator on. Once I got it in place, there's enough tension to keep it in place. There's enough tension inside of here to keep it in place, or enough friction or whatever. So it works out well. So then I'll just figure out where I need it to be and drill a hole in the frame and stick that up into the frame and such. So that takes care of the trucks there. Now I just have to put the sanding hoses on these. And now they're ready for paint. I said I was going to put the sanding hoses on, and I remembered the last time I did that, after I painted them and the subsequent coats of clear coat and things like that, when I would bent them into position, it caused them to crack, and it didn't look real good at all. So what I'll do is those insulated pieces, or those wire insulators, they'll get grit blasted separately, and then after everything's assembled and ready for weathering, I'll slip those on, and the grit blasting will dull the surface down, and the weathering will then coat them, and it'll look much better with washes and stuff like that over them. So I'm not going to put the sanding hoses on. So these are done now and ready for paint. What I'm going to do is put a coat of a chipping color on them, like a dark brown or something like that. Yeah, pretty much dark brown is what it is. And I'm not going to do a lot of chipping. There's just going to be a little bit of pinprick chipping here and there. I like the look of that when it's weathered and such. So I'll get these with a coat of the brown on it, and then put a clear coat over it, like a satin varnish. And then I'll do the top coat of black. Then I'll put some hairspray over them. Then I'll put a top coat of black and do just a tiny little bit of chipping on them. So that takes care of the trucks. And I want to just show you real quick something else I got in today. I got in some new milling bits. This one is the long reach that I was talking about, and that's going to allow me to get down into the frame with the collet up here so that I can see what's going on as I'm milling this stuff out here. The other one that I got, just a second, is a 4-flute stub end, standard length. This one is, what was the diameter I got on this one? Crap, 27/64. Now I got that because these are just slightly large. The mounting hole for these is slightly larger than 27/64. So if I think it's actually like 12 thousandths larger. And so if as long as I can get the mill centered on these fans, the last one I'll do is this one, and it'll just go straight down in and cut that hole open, and then I just have to do a little circular sanding to get it out wide enough to fit these in it. So that's why I got this piece, or this milling bit. So those are the two things I got in today, but this one, the long reach, will get used before this one because I'm going to need it to cut the frames. Because remember, I destroyed this frame, so I'm going to have to cut the frame again. Testing out to put Kato trucks under it. I really wish those Kato trucks would have worked, but boo, they did not look good at all underneath it. Although the Kato trucks look better, the whole look of the model was just, ooh, no way. So anyway, so that takes care of the trucks, and let's finish this video up. Well, that takes care of building the trucks. Now they're ready for paint and weathering and such. I still have to grit blast the wheel faces, which is no big deal. I have those in a wheel mask, and I just have to run the grit blaster over the outside of them and then paint them. What's nice about these wheels is there's no outside axle tip that's picking up the power, so I don't have to mask anything on the outside. But I would rather do that than have the wheel wipers on the back of the truck. So I won't be grit blasting the backside of the wheels. So those will stay nice and shiny and hopefully have good pickup. I clean them up and stuff. So you saw how the trucks went together. I'm sorry there wasn't a lot of building process in this video, but there was really nothing complicated or interesting to see. I had to glue on the journal caps and that kind of stuff. Everybody knows how to glue stuff on. There was no special way that I do it. Put some glue on there, put the cap on, make sure it's lined up, and then press it in place. That's it. You saw how I made the sanding nozzle by putting it in the lathe and turning out the end and then soldering in the pin and stuff. Gluing it in was straightforward. I showed you how I drilled the hole at a 60-degree angle and things like that. So nothing real special going on there. So that takes care of this video. I have to think about what's going to be for the next video. So to wrap this one up, thank you very much. I really hope you enjoyed that, and I'll catch you on the next one.